are you?
Same old.
Same old.
Yeah, same old, same old. And what about you?
I'm okay.
What is your opinion about freedom of speech in the USA? Um, do you think it has become less over the years?
Well, I think that's hard to say. What I would say is a few things. That one, the U.S. does have the First Amendment, which protects free speech, which is a good thing. Most countries don't have it, even in Europe, So, for example, in Europe, people are being arrested, and bank accounts seized and different things because of political speech. In the US, it's much harder to do because of the First Amendment. So that's a good thing. But I would also say that one always has to struggle to protect your First Amendment rights. So it's a constant battle, right? The state will always want to take away your rights, and it's always up to the people to fight for those rights. So there's always a to and a fro there, okay? What I would say is that on certain issues, there has been greatly limited the right to free speech. And what are those issues? One is the Palestinian issue. Defending Palestine is something could get you into trouble. You could lose a job. You could be deplatformed on social media. Certainly, your reputation hurt, that sort of thing. I guess the biggest thing being that you lose your job or that a job offer is retracted, So, and that is, partly the state is responsible for that because we know that the state, the CIA and FBI is working very closely with Facebook and Twitter and other social media platforms to censor speech, to even deplatform people, to demonetize people. So that's a problem. The other big issue, in addition to that people have suffered those same consequences for, has been on the war in Ukraine, if you were critical of the U.S. position on Ukraine. And the other thing was COVID. If you were critical of vaccines or masking or lockdowns, that could get you into trouble.
What do you think about the NATO alliance treating the security of Russia and other countries?
The NATO alliance, I don't support. I think it's a holdover, an obsolete holdover from the Cold War with the Soviet Union, which, by the way, I never saw as a threat either, the Soviet Union. But certainly once the Soviet Union collapsed, there's no purpose for it, but it is continued. And it is continued as an arm of imperialism, right? To engage in wars in places like Libya, Iraq, the former Yugoslavia, Ukraine now, perhaps the Middle East. And so on that basis, I oppose it.
How do you think? What can we do? It's a hard question. But what can we do to end this conflict, or in Ukraine, in Palestine? Do you have any views about that?
Yeah, we have to resist. We have to engage in protest, which I do. For example, we have to challenge our leaders. We have to engage in civil disobedience. We need to clog up the gears of the system. It's an immoral system. It's an evil system, and we cannot comply. That's the big thing. We cannot comply with that system, and I will not comply with that system, And I feel very privileged to live in the United States because I get to take on the monster, right? Che Guevara talked about living in the belly of the beast. I live in the belly of the beast. which is great because I feel good to be able to protest against my government because I think it actually could make a difference. If I lived in Luxembourg, who cares, right? So anyway, but we need to protest. We need to fight. We need to struggle. I believe in struggle.
And I hope we will fight and everything's gonna change near future. I hope so.
I think it will. Look, it's changing. It's changing. I think the world is changing. The multipolar world is growing. The resistance in Palestine is growing. The support for Palestine is growing. It's not going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of suffering and pain, but the world is changing, and we just have to keep moving forward. That's all.
Thank you very much for sharing your views.
You're welcome.
That's all on this topic.
Okay, great.